And I'm speaking with Quinton Flynn, finally.
Hey, everybody.
It's good to be here, Quinton, with you, finally. 2 years ago, I ran into you at Kawa Kon here, and I wanted to snag that interview. You've been a voice actor now for a good 20 years.
Yep.
You've done quite a bit, and I just want to tell you right now, I've listened to maybe almost a third of at least your video game roles, if not more, probably about that much of your anime roles. And I've played a lot of video games. I've been playing video games since I was 3.5. Metal Gear Solid 2, for me, by far, is my favorite video game. And that is thanks in no small part to you. I think your writing was absolutely excellent in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad they've kept you for the rest of the series that we've had Raiden.
Me too.
Yeah. You mentioned at one point that Raiden resonated with you, and you felt that you identified with his character. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know. I guess I brought something to the party that just clicked. I think in Metal Gear Solid 2, when Raiden was a rookie, I think everybody's had the feelings of being new and uncomfortable, but also anxious and excited about doing what they're doing in life. And that's what was going on, you know. I think it's general nature, too. And then, of course, when we moved on to Metal Gear Solid 4, where he became a world-weary, war-torn cyborg ninja, they added the dark element to him. You know, I was able to pull from anger and experiences in life, you know, where I had to fight and struggle, and when things didn't happen or go my way, then I became resentful and aggressive. And so I had all those elements to pull from. I definitely don't have any of that going on in my life today. I mean, I have struggles like anybody else does, but I'm not resentful. I accept everything as it is and just kind of align my will to what is and take things as they come, one day at a time.
I really personally like that about Raiden, that he had that kind of character, that he was ambitious, but the whole dynamic, I think, of him being a rookie, you really fleshed that out really well. I absolutely loved it. Now, as I personally said, Metal Gear Solid 2 is my favorite game of all time, and I like Raiden the most in Metal Gear Solid 2. Unfortunately, of course, it is fairly infamous at this point that the fan reaction initially to Metal Gear Solid 2 over Raiden was very bad because they were anticipating playing as Snake.
Right.
And then there was all the comparisons made. First off, I want to apologize for the fact that everybody's probably asked you that question so much. How do you feel about that question having been asked about how do you feel playing Raiden compared to Snake?
Well, you know, I came into the project and everything was new to me. Snake was new to me. The whole series was new to me. And I never compared myself to Snake, nor did the actor David Hayter compare his character to mine. We just, you know, we did our job and got creative and had a really good time. And so when there was a kind of a bizarre outburst of fan reaction, I had no idea what it was about. I really didn't get it. And then I understood that the fans kind of got something slipped to them that they didn't realize was going to be happening. And people tend to react to change not well, and I think that was it. You know, they were looking for the same thing, and you know, when an artist grows, he or she may change their style, you know, and oftentimes fans react in a negative way. You know, it happened when Dylan changed from acoustic to electric, when the Beatles changed from a pop band to a studio band with Sgt. Pepper's. I assume Hideo and his team, when they decided to make those changes, they wanted to grow the story in a different way and advance the franchise. I'm sure it all came from obviously a very creative place, and they were stoked about it. So rather than get upset at me, the voice actor, he can get upset at the creators.
Oh, don't worry, I'm not upset. I personally love absolutely everything that man has done. And again, Metal Gear Solid 2 is by far my favorite. I think there is a pretty sizable contingent of fans that are really on my side. I'm not sure how big that is or how much they've let you know they exist, but
Oh yeah.
I even personally would go as far as to say that I think Metal Gear Solid 2 Raiden was a better character because he had flaws. Him being more inexperienced than the character he was created more drama, even,
Yeah.
and really gave you more time to even work with it to begin with, as compared to Metal Gear Solid 4 Raiden, really, when the first major change was you said that you had to re-audition. It was like playing an entirely different character.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on how Raiden's character changed? What's your opinion and impression of that?
Well, he kind of grew. Obviously, there, was a side revealed to him that was darker, and why, the creators went that way, I don't know. I just accepted it and added to the creative process.
Back to Metal Gear Solid 2, you've mentioned that you really enjoyed working with Laura Cody, who is Rosemary.
Yeah.
How was that dynamic?
Well, it was great. I think, like peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, we're good together, I think. She's a terrific actress, and I really enjoyed our interaction.
You've mentioned when I asked you about it yesterday, you had no idea, of course, that Raiden even had a sequence where he was naked near the end of Metal Gear Solid 2. Was that for the entire game? You weren't really given the visual scene at all. You were basically free reign to just voice the script more or less. Then.
Well, we were given specific direction from the, like I said, the creators and the director as to what was happening during a particular scene or a time in the story, and we acted accordingly. But like I said, during that time, I don't remember, them telling me, "Oh, by the way, your character is going to be running around naked," because I don't believe I said anything or made any noises, right?
There was just one sneeze.
Oh, well.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that single sneeze.
Yeah. So besides that, I didn't have anything to do with it. So it was like, oh, okay, whatever.
You've mentioned that you finally played Metal Gear Solid 2. I think 2 years ago even I asked you and you said you either hadn't played it or hadn't played it much.
No, I tried it when it first came out. At the time, my girlfriend's brother had it, and he was playing it. And I thought, I'm going to give this thing a shot. And I started and stopped and started and stopped. And I just couldn't, make it happen. So I just looked at him and I said, here you go, buddy. You're in control. You're the pilot. And I'll just watch as one of the passengers. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I do the acting, and I leave the gaming up to the fans. You guys are the pros.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So you eventually saw all of it played then?
Not all of it,
Not all of it.
just elements of it,
Okay.
like on YouTube.
Excellent. Have you seen any of the other games that you've appeared in at all?
Only if someone's posted an element on YouTube. But no, I don't have any friends.
I
who are
think by now
gamers.
probably all of them are posted on YouTube in
Yeah.
one form or another.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I've been given some of the games, and they're sitting at home on my shelf.
Yes. It's perfectly understandable.
Maybe I'll throw them up on eBay.
Sure. I'm sure just because you own them, someone's going to buy it.
There you go.
Uh-huh. I'd like to actually take a moment and show you a conversation that happens later in the game that became quite famous.
Okay. Selection for societal sanity.
What do you make of that? Just initial impression.
I don't know. I think it's fascinating. I think for Jack, it's unbelievable. Whether he suppressed his memory or truly forgot. Now he's having to face up to all of this, which is terrifying. Really, it's kind of like George Orwell's 1984. Big Brother is watching you.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And I think people in general, depending on what information they get from the news wonder about what's going on with our government. Do they have our best interests at heart? How are we being controlled, manipulated and manufactured by, ad agencies and corporations and things of that nature? And I think that's probably what was being addressed here in Hideo's creativity. I think it was like looking at the bigger picture of the world and the picture of man and woman in life. What kind of life are you living? Is it one of faith or is it one of fear? What's truth and what is fiction?
Wow, excellent. I personally made a video analyzing this. It was the first video I ever posted on YouTube a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
And it's nice to finally ask you that question in particular. They mentioned that they think they're qualified to decide what we should know, more or less because they, as AIs, have the ability to sort through all the information that we produce online. How do you feel about artificial intelligence perhaps one day doing that?
I don't see it happening.
You don't?
No.
That's
No.
interesting.
Yeah.
Personally, I would say it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
That it will happen at some point in the future. Really, as scary as this conversation may be to the player and the audience and to Ryden, it probably is a cautionary tale kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
That overall this game was that to the player. But I would argue overall there's nothing inherently bad about programs running our lives even more than they do. I mean, if you think about it, we use smartphones now.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have these things called secretaries, or perhaps that used to do more of what they do. And decades and decades ago, when computers were new, there was a position called a computer that actually referred to a woman who was a secretary who would input numbers in a computer for us.
Uh-huh.
Back when that was a hard, strenuous process.
Sure.
Do you see that the progression, perhaps, of where technology is going might inevitably lead to programs running more and more?
Like in what capacity?
Managing our resources for us in ways that we currently do. I mean, we could argue about how they already are taking more of our jobs gradually in every field, manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
and even desk jobs, programming.
Yep.
Eventually, someone will probably program somewhere to manage the budget for our entire nation.
Wow. Well, that would be something if they could figure that one out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I look at it as, in principle, it's going to happen because we generally, over time, haven't really stopped letting technology do things for us whenever it becomes capable of doing it. Even at the expense of our own professions.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the trade-off always ends up being more efficiency, less work.
Right.
Whether or not in practice that happens with the lives of people, because there's always something more complicated that we can do up till now, and for some time. I feel like it's perfectly natural. We're eventually going to, you could argue, have like a program perhaps that manages just more things for us, like in the capacity of even a manager or an agent. Then, for starters,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if there's any replacing, a manager or an agent. I think there's always going to have to be there's going to have to be somebody involved, because people still need to connect.
Yeah.
And even Rose talked about the connection that was lacking between her and Jack, whether he was incapable of doing it or in denial. It's hard to know, but they had a relationship and have one, and if he wakes up to it, it'll get better, and if not, it'll continue. And that happens in life with people.
yeah.
How willing are you to be honest and present in a relationship? And are you living in truth, or are you living in denial? And as mentioned before, there's a lot of control that's happened already. Government mandated changes in our schools, the things that they're allowing students to learn, not learn, history, how it's being educated, or how we're being educated, how our students and kids are being educated. Information has changed over time. Countless, books that run contrary stories or information to what has been told, conspiracy theories. It's enough to make people paranoid and wonder what exactly the truth is. I guess the expression I've heard is, what is it about the truth? There's your side of the story, there's my side of the story, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
I know that really speaks to the fact that people are always their own perspective in every situation. I don't know. I personally look at it as, what if you could write a program that wouldn't do that, that could look at things as objectively as we already think of math and logic and programs as being able to exercise. I almost feel like perhaps maybe it's somewhat of a generational thing too. When I originally did my analysis video of this, I mentioned at the end about Roger Ebert, the fairly well-known movie critic, at some point even went so far as to say that he doesn't even consider video games art.
Really?
Yeah, I know, it's quite sad, really. What's your reaction to anyone who wouldn't call video games art?
Maybe they're, maybe they haven't played them. Maybe they haven't listened to the story. Maybe they haven't seen elements of it to understand it. I mean, it's kind of a strange comment that he would make. I don't know if it was...
No, he made the comment essentially in the capacity that he said video games being interactive, therefore they're not art, basically because art is passive. I think that's absolutely absurd, just by the sheer fact of there are any elements in video games that are passive and the same that we have in other media like voice acting, cinematics, music.
Yeah.
I know. I
agree with you.
It's fairly silly. And but I feel like that kind of attitude represents a certain divide about newer things and change. Perhaps like with technology, it's really not that radical a thought that we'll eventually keep having programs that have been continuously taking away our jobs and our work.
I know, which is horrible and frightening.
Somewhat, yes. At the end of the day, I see the result as being progress still. I'd say we still always have more options, not less. Even as that happens, as time goes by.
I don't know. I think it's taking away personalization and intimacy and communications with one another. I think with the advances we've made have been great, but by the same token, because of the technology we have, and everybody's so caught up on whether they're smartphones or their laptops, there's an isolatory component that happens where I withdraw from you as I go right now to look at a text message. And in fact, instead of somebody calling me up to ask me a question, they may text me a question. And while it's convenient time-wise, there's no human interaction.
You see, that's a more complicated thing to talk about, but my response to that is more or less, I don't necessarily think that means there's a problem with technology. I think that's human nature. I think anyone arguing that there's a problem with the fact that we have text messaging today is really missing the point. Because someone's only texting you, I think that means that that's their choice then, given the option of calling you or texting you, with how intimate they want to be with you personally, that they chose the option that they felt was acceptable to them. And that's really what all of this is. I think at the end of the day, having more options with technology really just reveals more about human nature and our character that was already there, we just didn't know it. And that, again, that's not necessarily bad, that's just more revealing. It calls more attention to what we consider problems that we wouldn't have known before, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the thing is about whether it's texting or emailing or I guess even writing a letter, when one is given that information, then sometimes it's hard to tell, the intention of the other person, because oftentimes context is lost in that kind of one-sided message. Without the human element, it's sometimes you're unable to witness somebody's sense of humor sometimes, or their sarcasm, or you know, what is a loving expression from one that is, you know, banal. And but I love texting. I think it's great. It's very convenient, you know. But by the same token, there's a lot of people who I used to speak to on the phone who only want to text, and so that's kind of a drag because
I don't like that myself either. Yeah.
you know, I had a great conversation with a dear friend last night, and there's no way that would have gone down in an email, you know, or a text messaging session, just because, well, there was so much to say and so much to hear and so much to listen to and learn and, you know, exchange. I mean, the fact that we're having this interview right now is a testament to the need for human interaction, because you could have posted these questions, and what if there was an AI of Quinton Flynn that answered them, quote unquote, perfectly?
Yeah.
You know, would it be the truth, or would it be a manipulation of the truth to give you the answers that you want to hear?
That's the thing. I wouldn't know, and unless I knew that I could trust that I was getting the genuine article, I guess.
Right.
Perhaps. But then that introduces really more of a question of whether there's something inherently wrong with an AI if it was honest that it was an AI.
How could it be honest?
Answering, well, if it didn't lie about what it was doing or who it was, I can understand, of course, I wouldn't want to be lied to and be talking to an entity that is not the person I was wanting to talk to. But if there was an AI that couldn't lie, or that didn't lie, was there anything inherently wrong with that if it was able to essentially act like a person?
If it could provide a service for us, you know, I suppose, well, that's already happening. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
When you call an airline or you call a business and you need help, let's say from an agent, you're always, you know,
phone menus.
You've got prompts that they put you through where they want you to have the solution fixed through technology. You know, they're constantly saying go to our website instead of, you know, talk to one of our agents. I called the airlines when I got into town. I had a question. You know, I was put on hold for at least 15 minutes after I entered all of my questions and went through all of the prompts to get to wait for an agent. And, you know, and then everything was handled properly. When I tried to use the information given online, there were questions I had and components that, again, just were not addressed. So I did have to speak to a human being.
Oh yeah, no, I won't sit here and say that any phone menu or program right now is remotely as good as a human being when it comes to these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's the convenience of the corporation
Exactly.
that has those, because they have to manage their resources and they only have a limited number of people that can talk to people in person.
Yeah.
And the reality is, sadly, that it's effective enough for the time being.
That's right, and they want to, you know, they want to make more money. It's all about the almighty dollar.
I would say that eventually that dynamic will change just by sheer technology as it raises the standard of living. I really do feel that eventually there will be programs running our entire economy and all of our resources eventually, to the point where there's no need for people to even be managing wealth or resources or the economy. It's really more of a looking out for myself kind of thing, which, you know, in a world filled by humans can be successful in limits. You know, controlled capitalism, of course, better than free market only. But eventually, if you could do away with any waste, or, you know, even argue people have money that they're not even effectively using for the resources that it could be used for, if you could.
Well, that's, you know, that's a conversation about the rich and the poor.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I mean,
unfortunately, we're short on time. For Revengeance, what was your direction as opposed to how it was in Metal Gear Solid 4?
Actually, I'm not allowed to talk about Revengeance.
Oh, that's right. You still can't mention even that. All right, I understand.
Until it's
we got
released.
9 days, I believe, until the game comes out on the 19th.
Yeah, and then I can answer questions after
That's
that.
right. I'm sorry, 10 days from now.
Because
Yeah, and
it's all.
non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
You were very diplomatic about that 2 years ago when we asked about if you were signed on for Rising. You said no, but if I had, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
Yeah, and that was I knew at that point. Of course, you'd probably been signed on for that. I had a gut feeling.
I don't think at that point I was.
Really?
Yeah, I was being honest.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
That's interesting.
exactly.
All right.
And the same with Rising. I'm allowed to say I'm in Rising, and it's coming out in what did you say, 9 days?
I'm sorry, 10 days on the 19th.
10
I
days
believe.
on the
Yes.
19th, and I can tell you that the experience was awesome. The script was well written. The characters were performed by terrific actors, and our director Chris Zimmerman is outstanding. A great producer, and of course, thank God for acting. You still need that human element.
Yeah.
You need us,
Certainly.
and the writers and the directors and the producers, to create this art that I would argue with Roger Ebert that it is art, absolutely art. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I can't imagine what game he saw or he played to think it wasn't, but some big games are oftentimes outgrossing major motion pictures at the box office.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's an amazing thing, really. I think it's all about the story. Since the early time of man, they were telling stories outside at night by a fire, a well lit fire, like a campfire, and stories were being told and information was being handed down through generations, and you had your art and in that capacity through storytelling, which was a form of acting, retelling of a story, which is being done in these games. And
Sure.
people would entertain one another, or find information as in a historical capacity to be of interest, to maybe learn from past mistakes, and to grow and change in other directions to have a more fulfilling life. And I think ultimately that's what everybody wants to have. And if we're allowed to use technology and to benefit us, it's a great thing. But if it gets in the way of human progress, I think it's a bad thing.
Absolutely. It's been nice talking to you, Quinton Flynn.
You got it, buddy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.